In 2005, archaeologists broke open a tomb in northern Peru that had remained sealed for 1,500 years. What they found inside defied everything we thought we knew about ancient power. A woman, draped in gold, surrounded by sacrificed warriors, wearing a crown that weighed more than a newborn child. But here's what they don't tell you in the history books. This wasn't just any woman. Chemical analysis of her bones revealed she'd consumed foods only available through trade routes spanning 2,000 miles. She had built those routes. She had controlled them. And when rival kings tried to take what was hers, well, the evidence of what she did to them is so brutal, some archaeologists refuse to display it publicly. Her name has been lost to time. But her power, that echo still shakes the foundations of what we think we know about the ancient world. This is the story of the Moche civilization's most dangerous secret, the queen history tried to erase. Let me take you back to 600 AD, to the coastal deserts of Peru, where the Moche people built pyramids that rivaled Egypt's. But here's the thing nobody tells you. They did it without wheels, without horses, and without written language. Imagine that. Now picture this. A young girl, maybe 14 years old, watching her father, the regional lord, bleed out from a rival's poison. In Moche culture, power wasn't just inherited. It was taken. It was proven. The lords believed they were descendants of the gods themselves. And to maintain that divine right, they needed two things: gold from the mountains and shells from the ocean. She had neither. What she did have was something more dangerous: intelligence that burned like wildfire, and a hunger that couldn't be satisfied with the scraps men were willing to give her. While other noble women learned weaving, she learned the secret language of traders. But intelligence without power is just a sharper cage, and she was about to break free in the most spectacular way imaginable. Her first move was so bold, so audacious, that even now historians debate whether it actually happened or if it's myth. Here's what we know from the archaeological record. Within 6 months of her father's death, trade goods from the Amazon rainforest, 900 miles away, started appearing in her region. Jaguar pelts, exotic bird feathers, hallucinogenic plants used in religious ceremonies, things that should have been impossible for a teenage girl with no army to acquire. So how did she do it? The murals give us a clue. They show something unprecedented, a woman seated in the position of power, but surrounded not by warriors, by merchants. She didn't conquer through force, she conquered through necessity. She made herself indispensable. Those mountain lords who controlled the gold mines, she offered them ocean shells that symbolized fertility, shells that only she could provide in quantity. Those coastal chiefs with fishing fleets, she gave them copper tools from the highlands that revolutionized their nets. She became the spider at the center of a web that stretched across an entire civilization. But here's the dark part, the part that makes your blood run cold. In Moche religion, maintaining cosmic balance required blood, and she was about to pay a price that would stain her legacy forever. Now, if you're watching this, I need you to understand something crucial about the Moche worldview. They believed the world operated on exchange. Everything required balance. Rain for crops, you gave blood to the gods. Victory in war, you gave blood to the gods. Power and prosperity, you gave lots of blood to the gods. And our queen, she was building an empire. The murals from her era show something that archaeologists call the sacrifice ceremony, but when you look closely, really closely, you notice something different. In earlier depictions, priests performed the sacrifices. In her era, the figure holding the ceremonial knife, the one drinking from the golden cup filled with sacrificial blood, that figure wears a woman's dress. The evidence is undeniable. She personally participated in ritual sacrifices, possibly even led them. Now, before you judge her by our modern standards, consider this. Those sacrifices were usually enemy warriors captured in ritual combat, and every single one of those warriors had tried to destroy her trade routes, to take her power, to end her life. In her world, it wasn't murder, it was survival, it was justice, it was the price of being taken seriously in a world run by men who wanted her dead. But it gets darker, so much darker, because what archaeologists found in her tomb suggests she may have done something even the other Moche lords considered extreme. When they opened her burial chamber, and I've spoken to one of the archaeologists who was there, they expected wealth. Gold pectorals, yes. Silver crowns, obviously. But what they found scattered among her treasures stopped them cold. Small clay vessels, hundreds of them, each containing a single human tooth. At first they thought it was ritual. Then they did the isotope analysis. Those teeth came from people who'd lived in at least 7 different regions of Peru. 7 different territories. And here's the thing that should make you pause. Each tooth was from a different person. This wasn't a mass burial. This was a collection. A trophy room of every rival she'd defeated, every lord who'd challenged her authority, every merchant who tried to cheat her. Can you imagine the fear she must have inspired? The whispers when her trade caravans arrived in a new city? That's her emissary. The one who serves the queen, who keeps the teeth of her enemies. But, and here's where the story takes an unexpected turn, those same trade routes that she built through fear and blood, they also brought unprecedented prosperity. We find evidence of improved nutrition in the common people during her reign. Better tools, wider distribution of goods. She was a monster to her enemies, yes, but to her people, she might have been the closest thing to a savior they'd ever known. At the height of her power, and we can date this to around 625 AD based on pottery chronology, her influence stretched from the Pacific coast to the edges of the Amazon, from the northern deserts to the central highlands. Think about that. An empire larger than many European kingdoms, controlled not through military conquest, but through economic dominance. She never commanded vast armies. She commanded something far more powerful: necessity. Every lord needed her trade routes. Every priest needed her access to sacrificial goods. Every craftsman needed her distribution networks. She'd made herself the heart that pumped lifeblood through the entire Moche civilization. But here's what keeps me up at night. We only know about her because of her tomb. There's no written record of her name, no epic poems. The Spanish conquistadors who came 900 years later never heard her story. How many powerful women did history erase simply because they didn't fit the narrative we wanted to tell? Now, if this story is making you rethink everything you learned about ancient civilizations, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Because next week I'm covering the evidence that suggests she wasn't alone. That there might have been an entire network of powerful women across the Americas that history has deliberately forgotten. But I need to know you want to hear it. Drop a comment right now. What would you have done in her position? Would you have paid a blood price for power? Every empire faces its breaking point. For her it came not from rival lords or enemy armies, but from the gods themselves. Or at least that's how the Moche would have seen it. Around 630 AD, the climate records show something catastrophic: El Niño. But not just any El Niño, a mega event that lasted for 30 years. Imagine floods that washed away entire cities, droughts that turned fertile valleys into dust, coastal waters warming so much that fish populations collapsed. Her trade empire was built on predictability: mountain goods for coastal goods, highland metals for lowland food. But when the mountains were flooding and the coasts were starving, when the normal rules of exchange broke down, what good was a trade queen? The murals from this period show something chilling: increased sacrifices. The Moche believed disasters meant the gods were angry, that more blood was needed to restore balance. And she, as the supreme ruler, would have been expected to provide that blood. But here's the question that haunts me. At what point does a leader, watching her people suffer, watching her life's work crumble, decide that the old ways aren't working? At what point does she choose to change or choose to double down? The archaeological evidence suggests she chose both, and it would be her final, most controversial decision. The evidence we have is fragmentary, but it tells a story that gives me chills. In her final years, she ordered the construction of something unprecedented. A massive ceremonial complex that merged coastal and highland architectural styles. A place that brought together the religious practices of 7 different regions. Some archaeologists think she was trying to unite the fractured Moche civilization through shared ritual. Others think she was attempting something even more radical, creating a new religion entirely. one that reflected the interconnected world she'd built. The thing is, we know she failed. Within a generation of her death, the Moche civilization began its terminal collapse. The trade routes fragmented, the Great Pyramids were abandoned. Some historians blame the environmental crisis. But I wonder, was it also the loss of her? The one person who'd held it all together through sheer force of will and strategic genius? Here's what we know for certain. When they buried her with more gold than any Moche ruler before or since. They surrounded her with sacrificed servants, with warriors, with her precious collection of enemies' teeth. And they sealed the tomb with layers of clay so thick, it took modern archaeologists 3 days to break through. They didn't just bury a queen, they buried a secret, a dangerous idea, that a woman could be just as powerful, just as ruthless, and just as visionary as any king. Now, here's where this story gets personal for me, and why I think it matters today. For over 1,000 years, nobody knew she existed. The Spanish came and wrote their histories of Peru, and they mentioned great kings, powerful priests, mighty warriors. But her? Erased. Not because she wasn't important. She might have been the most important Moche ruler, but because she didn't fit the story they wanted to tell. Even when archaeologists first found tombs with powerful women, they assumed these were priests' wives or symbolic burials. It took DNA analysis, isotope studies, and a new generation of researchers willing to question their assumptions before we realized these women weren't accessories to power. They were the power. And this makes me wonder, what other stories are we missing? What other histories have we overlooked because they didn't match our expectations? The Moche Queen's story survived in gold and bone and clay because those things don't lie. They don't care about our preconceptions. They just are. But how many others left nothing behind? How many brilliant women, cunning strategists, empire builders whose stories died with them because no one thought to preserve them? If you found this story eye-opening, if it challenged what you thought you knew about ancient civilizations, then I need you to do something for me. Leave a comment right now telling me, what historical figure do you think we've misunderstood? Who else's story needs to be told? Because your engagement literally determines what I research next. And smash that like button if you want more stories that history forgot. I want to leave you with one final detail that I find absolutely haunting. Remember those teeth she collected? The archaeologists did one more test I haven't told you about yet. They compared the dental patterns to regional populations, trying to identify where her enemies came from. And they found something unexpected. Several of the teeth belonged to women. Not many, maybe 1 in every 15, but they were there. Female rivals, female threats, women who challenged her, probably for the same reasons men did. They wanted power, they wanted control, they wanted what she had. And she eliminated them just as ruthlessly as she eliminated the men. This detail, more than anything else, tells me she wasn't just breaking gender barriers, she was shattering them so completely that gender became irrelevant to her struggle for survival and dominance. She didn't want to be treated like a woman in power. She wanted to be treated like power itself. And in that, she might be the most modern figure in ancient history. So here's my challenge to you. If this story moved you, if it made you angry that we almost lost it forever, if it made you wonder what else we're missing, subscribe right now. Not for me, but for her. For all the forgotten queens and the erased empires and the stories that deserve to echo through time. And here's the thing. We're at 50,000 subscribers, and I've promised myself that when we hit 100,000, I'm going to Peru myself. I'm going to visit her tomb, film it, bring you along virtually, and we're going to tell her story standing in the place where she was finally found. But I can't do that without you. So subscribe, like, comment with which ancient civilization you want me to cover next, and let's make sure that no story this powerful ever gets buried again. Because if history has taught us anything, it's this. The most dangerous stories are the ones someone tried to hide. And we just uncovered a secret that historians kept sealed for 1,500 years. What do we do with that power now? That's up to you.